The function of prayer is not to influence God but, rather to change the nature of the one who prays. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. People understand me so poorly that they don't even understand my complaint about them not understanding me. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. The most common form of despair is not being who you are. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. The greatest hazard of all, losing oneself, can occur very quietly in the world, as if it were nothing at all. No other loss can occur so quietly. Any other loss, an arm, a leg, $5, a wife, etc., is sure to be noticed. It is perfectly true, as philosophers say, that life must be understood backwards, but they forget the other proposition, that it must be lived forwards. What labels me negates me. I see it all perfectly. There are two possible situations. One can either do this or that. My honest opinion and my friendly advice is this: do it or do not do it. You will regret both. What if everything in the world were a misunderstanding? What if laughter were really tears? The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you will never have. Once you label me, you negate me. The tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins. Face the facts of being what you are, for that is what changes what you are. To venture causes anxiety, but not to venture is to lose one's self, and to venture in the highest is precisely to be conscious of one's self. To cheat oneself out of love is the most terrible deception. It is an eternal loss for which there is no reparation, either in time or in eternity. God creates out of nothing. Wonderful, you say. Yes, to be sure, but he does what is still more wonderful. He makes saints out of sinners. If anyone on the verge of action should judge himself according to the outcome, he would never begin. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but, if one will, are to be lived. The proud person always wants to do the right thing, the great thing, but because he wants to do it in his own strength, he is fighting not with man, but with God. It is so hard to believe, because it is so hard to obey. Many of us pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that we hurry past it. It is impossible to exist without passion. Boredom is the root of all evil, the despairing refusal to be oneself. How absurd men are! They never use the liberties they have. They demand those they do not have. They have freedom of thought. They demand freedom of speech. There is nothing with which every man is so afraid as getting to know how enormously much he is capable of doing and becoming. The self-assured believer is a greater sinner in the eyes of God than the troubled disbeliever. It is the duty of the human understanding to understand that there are things which it cannot understand. The thing is to understand myself. The thing is to find a truth which is true for me, to find the idea for which I can live and die. That is what I now recognize as the most important thing. I feel as if I were a piece in a game of chess when my opponent says of it that piece cannot be moved. Why bother remembering a past that cannot be made into a present? Leap of faith, yes, but only after reflection. On the secretly blushing cheek is reflected the glow of the heart. Happiness is the greatest hiding place for despair. My sorrow is my castle. Take away paradox from the finger and you have a professor. I stick my finger into existence. and it smells of nothing. It is very important in life to know when your cue comes. Once you are born in this world, you're old enough to die. A no does not hide anything, but a yes very easily becomes a deception. Hope is a passion for the possible. Once you are born in this world, you're old enough to die. My melancholy is the most faithful sweetheart I have had. And this is one of the most crucial definitions for the whole of Christianity, that the opposite of sin is not virtue but faith. Therefore do not deceive yourself, of all deceivers fear most yourself. Now, with God's help, I shall become myself. If you want to be loathsome to God, just run with the herd. The task must be made difficult, for only the difficult inspires the noble-hearted. The only intelligent, tactical response to life's horror is to laugh defiantly at it. My standpoint is armed neutrality. The present state of the world and the whole of life is diseased. If I were a doctor and were asked for my advice, I should reply, create silence. What looks like politics and imagines itself to be political will one day unmask itself as a religious movement. What is youth? A dream. What is love? The dream's content. In my great melancholy, I loved life, for I love my melancholy. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced.